Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. It's time to do something with the exhaust now. There is a method to my madness. I know that it seems like I'm kind of jumping around and doing things that wouldn't really matter. But as long as I'm going to go ahead and start this up, I thought it would be nice if it was quiet and there wasn't just a bunch of exhaust blowing out the broken flex joints that are down here. And so we might as well get this done now too. The problem that people usually have when they're removing the exhaust is that there's brass nuts on the bottom of here. This is a 3/8 fine thread stud going in there. I think it's coarse going into this cast housing. Then it's fine thread down there, and there is a brass nut on there, just like these are brass nuts. But what happens is they get stuck and people put a lot of force and twisting and they will snap this whole ear off of here. I don't want to do that here, but I do want to go ahead and pull this all down. It's got to be fixed. And so what I've decided to do is separate the exhaust down at the broken flex joint, which is right down about here after these make their curve and start going back. And then I will take these off at the head, pull them up, and then get these nuts off when I have it on a bench. I can apply some heat to these nuts, put some penetrating oil on there, and then also get it in a nice position and clamp down so I'm not really putting a lot of twist on it and running the risk of snapping that off. These are all original, obviously, and the rear's got a lot of chips out of it, and I guess the front does too. It's just dirtier. You know, I don't want to take this all off, but it's nice to replace these gaskets as well. The alternator is already off from when I thought I was going to have to take the water pump off. You can see the cooling system is all done. That was in the last episode. And so I just left the alternator off because I knew I'd want to attack the exhaust this way. So first I'm going to raise the car up, and I'm going to get what's left of the exhaust underneath off the bottom. But you'll see from under there, I am pretty sure that all of the exhaust on here is original. And I think we're going to find out some things about what the original exhaust was like because there's not much of it left around. All right, let's get her up in the air and get to work. Okay, let's go underneath now and take a look at the exhaust from under here. It's still dirty under here. It's still just the way I found it. But I believe that all the exhaust on here is original. And we can talk about that for a minute. Now up there is where the downpipes go into the manifold. I'm going to zoom up. These should be brass nuts that are on a 3/8 fine thread stud sticking out. And it's very easy to break off an ear on the manifold trying to get those off. All right, now we come back down here. Not really sure why the one has a little darker hue of rust on it than the other, but here are the flexible sections in the downpipe, and you can see this one is split open, I believe. Yeah, there you go. That one's split open. And this one is a little suspect in the back. All right. And now here is some dripping and leaking from the gearbox. But we're going back now. These are the original factory clamps. And I believe that these are factory mufflers. Now right here you can see that these bolts, they look like they're coarse and a little different, and they don't really have much of a marking on the head. But they seem to have been in there forever, and the 66s would have had black downpipes and then an aluminized muffler section. So this looks about right. And then we've still got the factory clamps right here. This obviously was bare steel coming out the back. They've got a little bit of a rust problem here, right in here. You might be able to fix that. We'll see. And then here are the intermediate pipes, is what we always called them. And then this one's got some rust. And then this is all of the original
resonator bracketry. And you can see this here is kind of a safety clamp that a lot of cars don't have. And so if this rubber broke, it would fall down and land on here and wouldn't drag on the street. So that's what we've got under here. I think what I'm going to do to ease the removal is mark these here. I'm going to put a line down the center so I can line them up, and then I'm also going to run some tape around and give myself like an exact 6-inch distance. And then I can go ahead and use that to cut out this section that's flexible and weld in a new section of flexible material from another set of new downpipes. But as you can see, these downpipes look like they'd be okay if we clean them up. Might blast them and put some black paint on them like they were originally. But you can see they don't have any real kinks. They have very nice slow turns. They're almost mandrel bent. And so there's really no restriction, and they fit beautifully. So I think we're going to try to save those. I think we're going to try to save all of it. We'll see how that goes.
Okay, mission accomplished. I've got this down. And I did get out the Sawzall, but as you can see, I did not have to cut it. It just broke there. What's interesting is this pipe is slid inside this flexible stuff pretty far, almost touching the other one. And then this flexible stuff's just welded across the two of them. Actually, it is not welded. Look at this. It's brazed. Never seen that on exhaust before. But again, I really do think this is original. You know, there is just no knowledge about original exhaust. It just didn't last very long. And then back here, you can see where it looks like some critter has started to make a little home in there. So God only knows what's back there in the baffles of that muffler. So that'll be interesting. But the muffler looks okay on the top. That's just a little surface stuff, a little bump there, but it looks all right. We've got that little problem here in the back. So again, we will clean this up and try to do as little damage and change to it as possible and get it back in operating order. But there it is. It's all original, and there's the original clamps and everything. Okay, so I've got the car back down now. We are separated over here, and we're going to go ahead and take these nuts off here. There's 8 on each manifold, 4 across the top, 4 on the bottom. And usually you get all of these with a socket, but then these 2 under here on the inside, on the bottom, usually have to reach under there and get them with a wrench. So let's go ahead and take these off, and hopefully I can snake this up through there without damaging this heat shield or this heat shield. You know, I'm tempted to put something over it to protect it, but a lot of times that's worse because then you don't realize that you're knocking it. So I'm just going to leave it uncovered and be very careful. Okay, here are the manifolds off the car. Here's all the little nuts and lock washers right where they came from. This one here that's missing is under the car. It rolled down on the floor, and I got to raise the car up and find it. But here are the downpipes where they go up into the manifolds. And we always, when I was a kid at the Jag shop, we always sold a brass fine thread 3/8 nut for here. But as you can see, these originals are all steel. And that would help account for why they always seem to break. So I will probably, I'm at the home shop now. I will take these over to the real shop. And I will heat this up probably with a propane torch so I don't go crazy. Just to heat up this nut and kind of get the nut going, you know, a little bit, and then undo it that way. And then we'll pull those off. And then I will attempt to weld new flex pieces. Actually, I probably will take this all off and then braze new pieces on there. And we'll make, we'll repair these original downpipes. All right, it's the next morning now, and I'm over at the shop. And these were sitting at the house garage all night. You can see there's a little bit of liquid here. I hit these with a wire brush and cleaned them up. And then, oops, sorry. Then I stood them up like this, up against the back of the bench, just like that. And I filled this up with this stuff called aerocroil. So I had little puddles right in here, because as you can see, these studs, they're actually almost a little bit short, which probably is going to work out well. And so I stood this up just like that, so it's perfectly flat. And then I filled these up with that aerocroil stuff. And when I came back in the morning, just a little while ago, it's gone. So it has leaked down in there, which is great. These will probably come right off with a wrench now. But I've seen so many of these that are broken that I'm not even going to take the chance. I am going to get out the propane torch and just heat these nuts up a little bit before I take them off. So let's see how that goes. All right. Things are looking good. Of course, there's 7 to go, but this one came right off. And it looks like that oil did leak down in there a little bit. And you can see not a lot of the threads are grabbed, you know, because we had that little washer in here. See, this little washer was in there like that. But I heated it up a little bit and it came right off. You can see this is all original. I don't know if you can see. See that little row of circles there? That makes this an original nut. That's how the original nuts are. Even the brass ones have those little circles. So we are taking this apart for the very first time. All right, let's keep going. Okay, I got all 4 off of here successfully. This one, the stud came out. It actually started to turn the nut on the stud, but then the stud started to move. And there it is right there. And I think earlier I said these were coarse in the manifold, and you know, they really should be, but they are not. They are fine. So what I wasn't ready for is this downpipe didn't just pop right out of there. So I'm going to have to do a little prying on that. I've only used my hands so far. You know, I'm still running the danger of breaking off one of those ears with those studs sticking out. So got to continue to be careful here. Okay, I had to fight that a lot harder than I thought I would, but things are okay. Each one turned out the same, and look, it's in even the exact same configuration. That's weird. The 2 back studs came off nicely, and the studs are still good, and the nuts are still good. Then you got this front stud in the back. It was a little tight. This was really tight. It seemed like they tightened up the... Oh, wait a minute. These things are upside down. So, all right, so it's reversed. So these are the ones that are on the outside of the car. All right, kind of in the front of the manifold. This is in the back. And the 2 backs were very tight. And you could see where the plates were kind of cocked a little more. And so this one here stripped some of the threads off as it came out. So it screwed up the stud and the nut a little bit. And then over here, just the stud itself came out. So that's okay. And then over here, we got the exact same thing. These 2 here on the outside of the car came out very nicely. They're fine. This one stripped a little bit of the threads off. And this one here, the stud backed out. You can see there's one little thread in there that's a little screwed up. So we'll have to chase that. And then you'll also note that these have a deep, I don't know what you want to call this, kind of like a chamfer or a groove, because the E-types take a donut here. The earlier cars and some of the sedans, this was just a flat surface, and then they took a gasket in here. But on the E-type, there's a donut. All right, so here's the pipes here, and you can kind of see this is a steel piece on there, but then this section here is that donut that's crammed in there for a good seal. So we'll replace those donuts. We will clean up the studs. We'll probably take this one out and put another original in from another. I've got a ton of exhaust manifolds up there, but they're all pretty bad, and they've all got broken corners. And then we'll just clean this all up and put those back together. But for this morning, I'm all done because I have to go help my 16-year-old daughter learn how to back into a parking space for her parking test. So that is probably going to prove a lot harder than this. Okay, well, here's what things turn into. All kinds of work. These are the manifolds from this car. And you can see I'm all cleaned up here, and I've got 4 decent studs. They're not great, but they're originals. 7 of these studs are original. The 8th stud is this one right here, and it is an original from one of these manifolds over here, which took me a lot of work to try to get one off. See, I kind of stripped some nuts on here and yada yada, but this is still a good set of manifolds, although everybody just buys new now. But anyway, the one stud that I had to replace is this little guy here. I had to TIG, I don't know if you can see, get my hand out of there. I had to TIG a nut onto there so I could get it out of the manifold. But this was one of the ones that had a bunch of thread taken off the top, and it really just wasn't not gonna work. These over here all seem to have good enough thread. These 2 right here, like this one and this one, are a little sketchy, but I think they'll be all right. So other than this one stud, these are all original and they're all apart, and we will clean them up. You can see I've started to kind of sand some of this off of here, get that cleaned up. I was going to do my little sandblaster trick, but I decided not to do that. So anyway, there you go. Made a big mess, but I got the job done without breaking them. Okay, time to put the manifolds back on. There they are. They're all doctored up, basically just washed off. You can see that most of the enamel is gone from them, and that's pretty much par for the course. Here are the original gaskets. They have kind of a metal in them, and I don't know if you can really see. It's kind of a sandwiched metal and a fibrous material, and the metal, see how the metal's kind of on one side? Well, the metal was definitely on the head side. So we're going to put those new ones on just like that. And then here's all of our nuts in the same spot where they were. And then here's all of our original nuts here with little circles on them. And there's those. So let's go ahead and put the manifolds back on. Okay, I just want to show you guys that these nuts, these brass nuts, are painted black, but only the ones that don't have something else under them. So I think that the manifolds were put on, but for example, in the very back where you've got the gearbox breather, and then you've got the dipstick holder, and then in the front where you've got the alternator, those little brass nuts are identical to this, but they are not painted black. Okay. They're back on there, and every nut and little lock washer is exactly where it came from. And I do want to say that these nuts were definitely painted black at some point. And I tried to put as few marks on them as possible, getting them on and off. But these were all painted black except for that one and those 2. It seems like they painted them black when they came out of the engine shop, but then with these were still had nothing on them. Maybe then on the assembly line they just put brass nuts there that weren't painted black. But anyway, when you take the care to put everything right back where it came from, you can kind of see that stuff. So anyway, there they are. I've got to clean up the alternator now and put it back on. I'm just going to hope it works, and we'll see how that goes. And we've got to do the actual exhaust pipes and mufflers next. Came out pretty well, I think.